Good morning, everybody. It's me, Lori Simpson Ortega, a host of a Victorious Life and Outreach Teaching Ministry located here in the beautiful city of Roses, Tyler, Texas. Today we are here with Sunday School Sunday School lessons for the Unchurched, Nonchurched, and Church Hurt. And you know what? They told me to stop picking with my hair, so I'm going to not do that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. And we're broadcasting early because today is day 2 of soccer. Yeah. On the past 2 or 3 lessons, we talked about the concept of light. Okay, we talked about the Beatitudes. And with the Beatitudes, we talked about them as a character guide for not only Christian character, but for how we approach natural problems, solutions, etc., how we deal with the emotions and the emotional states and the mentalities of other people. I'm sorry, y'all. I have to do that. The camera turns into a mirror. So now that we have finished chapter 5 verses 1 through 13. Now that we have the foundation for that, I want you to notice that the Beatitudes, they start to switch gears. It's almost as if in chapter 5, while it is considered and regarded as the Sermon on the Mount, what appears to happen from within this chapter is you have the first 13 verses talking about the individual, the individual and character and all of those. And then smack dab in the middle of the chapter at verses 14, 15, and 16, it's like it shifts away from natural thinking and how to control your, emotions and mental stuff. It shifts. And it goes into what we regard as a more Christian character, or the character or the assets of attributes of a believer. So a believer in Christ, let me clarify that. So that has always been one of the things that has, it's interesting to me how it goes from, again, blessed are they, and when this happens to you, more scenario oriented in 1 through 13, and then it gets just a little bit more specific. So I like to think that as Jesus was teaching them, good morning, Kimberly. As Jesus was teaching them, what he was really doing was he was taking them deeper without them ever really realizing it. And I want you to realize that when you study the scriptures, especially the Gospels, what starts out as simple, the more things that become revealed to you, the deeper it actually speaks to the core of who you are. And not only the core of who you are, but the core of who Christ is in relationship to the world, and most importantly to you. So Matthew chapter 5 verse 14 reads, "Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid." Okay, well, you know what? Here are 2 things, all right? There are 3 things, actually 4 points that I want to make about this one verse. The first thing he tells them is that you are the light. That means you are a source of illumination. You are the source for people to see, all right? And not just seeing naturally, but also spiritually. Now, when Jesus said in, John 8, now I'm going to merge some scriptures because these get a little this gets a little deeper. When Jesus said in John chapter 8, verse 12 and 9 and 5, he says, I am the light of the world. And then in First John 1 and 15, John wrote, God is light. He's not saying that we are God, okay? He is not saying that we are independent sources of light. When he says to them that you are the light of the world, he's saying that when you accept me and you take me in and you live your life based on my power and my strength, and you apply the principles of my words to your life, he says, then you become light yourself, per se. The light of me will radiate from you, and you will become a source for light. Okay? Not a source, the source of light. You become a source for light. You become the flashlight yourself. Okay? Now and I want to clarify that, because sometimes people will run with that. Hang on one second. I may have to stop for a minute. Okay. Not sure what happened. Well, I'm sure I know what happened, but anyway, it looks like I'm going to have to hold my phone. So, there was a glitch, so we fixed it. Okay. Now, you are not the primary source for light. You become a resource, if that makes any sense, because sometimes people will run with this. They will say, we're God's, and I have God. You have the Spirit of the living God within you. You are not the source. You are a resource, if that makes sense. You have the source, but just because you have the source does not mean that you are the primary source, if that makes any sense. So he says to them that you are the light of the world. So when he said that, he was saying that, first of all, that was a compliment. That was one of the highest compliments I think that he could give to believers, to say, you are the light of the world. When the world sees you, they should see light. They should be, your decisions should bring illumination. How you conduct yourself and how you carry yourself. You are the light that they may not understand why they are drawn to you, but you'll know why they are drawn to you. He's telling us why. Now, here's what I want to say about that. When he says you are the light of the world, that's why character is important. That's why character matters, because he wants to put at the forefront of your mind who you are and what you do, how you act, how you move, what you say. It matters. So again, he has been speaking on the basic principles of how we should act, or how we should think and behave. But now he's taking it a step deeper. He's saying that the disciple and the learner and the follower is to be like him. We are to model or pattern our behavior after him. If he is light, so too should we be light. We live in a society where people, they counter light with dark. Here's an example. When you ask someone to do something, okay, you cannot always expect for them to, number one, do it to the level that you would like for it to be done. So that's number one. The second thing, you cannot, if someone asks you for something and you provide it, if it is not to the level at which they want it provided, or within the time frame, or you provide the quality, then we live in a world where people, they want what they want when they want it. So they will often overlook the fact that you did it, okay? And they look at the quality of it. Now, in some cases, you do have to look at the quality of how something is done, and you do have to look at how something is presented. But the problem becomes people don't always, some believers, when they get angry, when they get upset, when they get mad, they don't always remember that you are the light, okay? That your mannerisms, they matter. You know, your language, it matters. Your words matter. So sometimes people will forget that, you know, they are the light, and they will forget that they are the salt from last week. He spoke, remember we talked about salt on last week, and now he's saying light. They forget that they are to be like salt and light. And people will say, you'll hear people say, well, don't look to me. I can't be a role model. Okay, but you're telling people, you're using words like the good Lord and you know, since Christ came into my life, and then all of a sudden you're saying, I'm not a role model. Okay, well, that's what light means. Light speaks to your character. So when he says that you're the light, he's saying that you will become, when you accept me and you live, you know, you live the way that I have ordained for you to live, and you apply the principles of my words to your life, then you become a source of illumination, because you are a byproduct of the source. All right. Now, I know some people will say, oh, that we're not byproducts. We're byproducts. You know, we're byproducts. And what I think is interesting for us to note is that when he says that you're the light of the world, and if I read the scriptures from John and from 1 John and John, that said, you know, God is light, and that when Jesus said, I am the light of the world, then you know that what he's speaking to is that light is an indicator, and it should identify you as a follower of Christ. Now, notice from within that verse, he also says, not only are you light, but you're light of the world. That means that there is a difference between the man-made light and the light of Christ from within this world. You know, I'm sitting to my left, your right. I have a soft lamp in the kitchen. Now, if I turn the main, if I turn the main, flip the switch, then I have a high in front of me. The ceiling in the cooking area is significantly higher. So there is there's fluorescent lighting. Behind me, there's a ceiling fan that has a light attached to it. There's another ceiling fan on the other side, a matching ceiling fan that has a light attached to it. Then there's a light over the sink. Now, here's why I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sources of light. But the primary source of light is the fluorescent, because it produces, the higher part, it produces more light than the lamp, more light than the light over the sink, than the ceiling fan lights. Now, could I function in the kitchen with each of these lights independently? Yes, I could. But at some point, whenever I am cooking or we're reading something or I'm doing a task that requires a higher level of light, I've got to go flip the switch to gain access to the primary light. A lamp is just a byproduct, okay? Because if I unplug the lamp and remove it, it is for ambiance only. It is for ambiance and then aesthetics. It is not, you know, I couldn't be cooking across the kitchen and trying to use the lamp as my primary lighting source. And there are times when I am cooking, when I'm using the lamp, I don't like I love natural light. So sometimes I'll have the lamp on, but then I'll go over to the stove and I'll turn on the stove light, or the vent light, and I am using that as a source for illumination. So that's what I want you to understand, that he was saying, you are a byproduct of me, and you have been called specifically to serve as an example of light for the world. And the world is not just your family, your neighborhood, your community, your city, your state. It is, in fact, wherever you go. I'm about to travel to the DFW area with our son. And, I can't just be light in Tyler. I can't flip the switch to off when I leave the city limits. My switch has to stay on consistently. It's got to stay on. So that's what he's saying, that you are a reflection of me. And this, again, coming off the heels of the Beatitudes, we see how it is getting deeper. He's now saying this last week, this is how you deal with your character, but now he's saying, hey, wait a minute, I want you to display and exhibit me wherever you go. And that's not just physically, that's in your thinking, that's in your conversations, that's in how you conduct business, that's how you carry yourself. And then he says, a city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Now, when he used the word city, it was basically saying your location, from wherever you are the city. You are the thriving, the hustle, the bustle, the growing. That is you. That speaks primarily to you. And he's saying that if you are the source or the beacon for light, then you need to know that even if you're not on a hill, you cannot be hid. You're the radiating of him. It cannot and should not hide you. And that's what he was saying. He was saying that when he spoke about the city, you not only are you a source of light, but you are a designated location for light. You're designated for light. And when he says that is set on a hill, he was saying you should have an elevate, because you are spiritually connected. You should have an elevated thought pattern. You should have your character should be elevated. Your motives should always be pure. Your thinking, how you conduct yourself, it should be at a higher or elevated state. And I think that's something that we really need to think about, because he's saying we should not think. We should not have the same mentality as the world. The world sees doom and gloom. The world prophesies and speaks doom and gloom daily. Even some of the lips of the believers. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's this. I don't know what to do about this. Okay, wait a minute. Yes, you do. Trust God. You're the city. If the world is coming to you with doom and gloom because you're the city that's set on a hill, you are the designated light source. And because you are the designated light source, then you are the person that they should feel that they should receive some type of spiritual godly word. When people come to me, oh, things are going crazy. I'll say, yeah, it's kind of out of control right now. No, I know I said it's kind of free falling right now, but you know what? Who's still in control? God is still in control, and who it's gonna work out for. It's gonna work out for us. Do you believe Christ? Are you a believer? That's an opportunity to witness. We don't need to be sitting up here talking about all of the havoc and all of the devil's home that's taking place in politics, that's taking place in schools, that's taking place on jobs and the economy. We don't, the world is in a bad enough shape for me to be adding my little non-trading opinion, negative non-trading opinion. I'm a light source. We can keep compounding the problem, or we can seek to be solutions. And that's what he's saying. because we have been set on a hill. We are the designated sources for light in this world, and that we should operate on a different level. Last night I attended along with some childhood friends and neighborhood friends and family of the celebrant. We celebrated our childhood friend, classmate, and overall good person, Kimberly Talbert Beiser, for becoming the first African American female city manager. Even if you took female away, in the 100+ years of the history of Dallas, no one of color has ever held that spot. So she's the first, and there's nothing like being first, especially in that capacity. So we were celebrating her, and the commonality in the speeches that we were able to give about her was that she was very driven, and that she was very focused, even at a young age, and that she always did everything she did to the highest of levels. Her papers were always neat. She thought before she spoke. She just different things like that. And I use that example because following that pattern, and then when she spoke about her faith and, growing up in Sunday school and, missions and all those things. And I use that example because whenever you find a seasoned professional who operates on a different level, to the level of constant and consistent perfection, it's not perfection in their eyes. It's the level at which they have chosen to operate. And I use that example because when we look to examples in business and industry and nonprofits and education, we have a tendency of just grabbing what not to do's and not focusing on the people who are consistently doing. So I'm using that example because that's basically how we should function and operate as believers in Christ in this world. We should be the ones that the world can look to for an example, even in the quality of our work, in our conversation, how we conduct ourselves, our words. Our motives, and I always say this, our motives should always be pure. If our motives is to hurt people, is to make them feel guilty, to constantly try to control them, and you did this to me, and you said this to me, and you hurt me this way, and this is what you did. You know what? At some point, as a believer in Christ, if that happens to you, you got to say, okay, you know what? I'm putting a period at the end of this, because that's what you want. You like functioning in the hurt and the bitterness and the anger. So I'm going to give all of that to you. You can have all of that, but you need to know I put a period and I am moving forward. You know what? As believers in Christ, we don't need to just sit in there and get in on those anger, bitter, hurtful parties. We don't need to do that. Because when we do that, we flip our switches to off. We need to take ownership and accountability. Yes, I did that. Yes, I apologize. I'm sorry. But at some point, you've got to be like, wait a minute. Okay, now I can't be light if I'm walking around here in constant condemnation. And I can't be light if I'm constantly having to redot I's and cross T's because of another person's, hurt, anger, bitterness, or what have you. And that's what I'm saying. When you do that, you cannot be the light source for other people. So when you yourself are walking and stumbling around in the dark because you have allowed other people to flip your switch to off, and how do they do that? By pushing your buttons. By doing mean and hurtful things and saying mean and hurtful things, and you responding with mean and hurtful things, you just flipping your switch off. Nobody you can't be successful. You can no longer operate as a successful illumination source. So that's what he's saying. Make sure that you are always people are always able to identify the light of you, either by your actions or your words, how you conduct yourself, how you engage in business, how you finish your task, etc. We should see a reflection of Christ in every part of you, even in your home. If we go to your home and you feel comfortable just leaving trash, we come to your home and you dry your hands and you just ball up trash and you just leave it on counters, you drop it on floors. We pass by your house, there's trash all everywhere. We go in your garage, it's just empty, random boxes and coffee cans and whatever tray. You clean your car out, you just left it in your garage. You know what? That is a sign that there are things that are going on. You cannot have the illumination of Christ. It shows that your mind has not been transformed and renewed. Because you know what? People who live for Christ, they do things at a higher level. They throw the trash away. They keep their areas clean. They keep their environments clean. They're selective and protective of who they hang out with. They think before they speak. They self-monitor themselves, because the Spirit is the barometer from within. They keep their cool. There have been times when people have been going off on me and saying rude, mean things, and I have so wanted to respond. But you know what? The spiritual barometer has been like, no, don't match anger with anger. You use the words that you know to use. You speak in a soft, calm voice. You state facts. You don't get caught up in the minutia of somebody else's emotional or mental state at that time. And you know what? And I have just let them have it. Whatever you say. Why? Because I know it's the truth. Now I'm going to be real transparent. It took a while. Has taken and continues to take me a while to walk in that level of restraint. But you know what? I don't benefit anything by matching anger with anger. I don't benefit. And you know what? Sometimes people say things out of anger that you can't go back and retract them. So that's what he was saying. Then when we get to verse 15, he says, neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Verse 16, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So with verse 15, he's saying, you don't buy a flashlight, turn it on and put it under a pillow. You don't buy black light to illuminate your house. You don't buy a candle to let it burn, put it inside of a cabinet. He's saying you don't do that. That's a waste of that light source. So he's saying you don't light a candle and then just put it wherever wherever you put it in a place where nobody's gonna benefit from it. All right. He's saying that you are the source. You're a source for light. And because you're a source for light, you need to be where light can expose. You need to be where people can see light. You need to be where people can benefit from light. Now, there are times when people, and I challenge you, there are times when people they are embarrassed and they're not confident in sharing their beliefs. I've heard and seen people on jobs. Nobody knows you're a Christian but the other Christians. Go figure. I don't feel comfortable sharing my faith at work. Okay, well, nobody's telling you to evangelize in the open. Nobody's telling you to conduct a testimony service in the main corridors and hallways and we're not saying that. But if nobody on your job knows that you are a believer in Christ, what's the purpose for you being on that job? Because that job is just a source for your livelihood. It's not it's a resource. It's not the source. And God put you there to illuminate and share your testimony, to share who you are and his his change of power, the power of change and transformation that he has made in your life. So he's saying, you don't hide light. You don't get light to hide it. And then when he says, let your light so shine so that men may see your good works and glorify God, glorify your Father in heaven. He was saying, you don't want any glory. The glory that you receive is because you are living your life based on his words and his principles. And when they see that, their first response may be, boy, that's an amazing person. Boy, that person is amazing. That may be their response. But you know what? But at the end of the day, when they hear that you are a believer, they're going to glorify God. The Lord is so good. Boy, that woman right there, that man right there, they have Christ. They have Christ. They're not like other people. So the mission becomes for you to live the life so that you can glorify God and you can glorify him first through your good works. So that other people, your good works will serve as a source of light. How you do things, your attention to detail, how you carry yourself, the words you use, how you conduct business, how your follow through, all of those things, they will be your good works will be what people glorify. But they won't just be glorifying you. They will give glory to the Father. They will give God the glory and the praise. And how are they going to do that? By thanking him for you, by giving you compliments. And you will have an opportunity to disciple, to share your testimony, to evangelize. So you know what? I know this was a quick lesson today. We're getting ready to get out on the road. Wanted to do it significantly early. But on next week, we will continue. And as we always say, if you have Christ, you're already a winner. If you have the Spirit of the living God, you can face any challenge life throws your way. You can live a victorious life. God bless you.